Hello students, this is Sanjeev Bade from KJ Somaya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology. Welcome you once again to my channel. In last session on lasers, we have discussed some of the basic terms like absorption, spontaneous emission, stimulated emission, population inversion, metastable state, and the role of resonant cavity. In this session, we are going to discuss some of the laser systems like Nd:YAG laser, helium neon laser and semiconductor laser. So our discussion will be based on construction and working of these laser systems. First one is Nd:YAG laser. It is a solid state laser. It is a 4-level laser system, so it can be operated in continuous wave mode. Here Nd stands for neodymium ions and YAG stands for yttrium aluminum garnet. This yttrium aluminum garnet is an optically isotropic crystal. In this crystal, some of the yttrium ions are replaced by neodymium ions. This yttrium aluminum garnet has nothing to do with the lasing action. It just serves as a host lattice in which some of the neodymium ions can be introduced. This diagram shows the construction of Nd:YAG laser. Here you can see one elliptical reflector, Nd:YAG rod, solid state laser. So Nd:YAG rod along with a krypton lamp is kept inside this elliptical reflector. This Nd:YAG rod is kept at one of the focus and krypton arc lamp is kept at the other focus. Now here the type of pumping that we are using is optical pumping. So the light emitted by this krypton arc lamp will be utilized for exciting the neodymium ions from lower energy level to higher energy levels. So the method of pumping is optical pumping. And why are we using elliptical reflector? We are using elliptical reflector in order to make best use of light energy for exciting the neodymium ions. Because we are keeping the Nd:YAG rod at one of the focus and krypton lamp is kept at the other focus, all the light rays emitted by the krypton arc lamp after getting reflected from the wall will arrive at the other focus where the krypton rod is kept. So the light energy is not wasted and entire light energy is utilized for exciting the neodymium ions to the higher levels. So this is the purpose of using elliptical reflector. Here a resonant cavity is formed with the help of two mirrors, one of which is fully reflecting mirror and the other one is partially reflecting mirror. The laser beam can be obtained from the partially reflecting mirror. So laser beams come out in this direction in this case. This capacitors, power supply, trigger pulse, these are the things necessary for running this krypton lamp. So this is a simple construction of Nd:YAG laser. In Nd:YAG laser, neodymium ions are the active centers. Why neodymium ions are active centers? Because they are characterized with some metastable state where the neodymium ions can rest for long time and therefore population inversion can be achieved. Yttrium aluminum garnet is a crystal in which some of the yttrium ions are replaced by neodymium ions. Here this yttrium aluminum garnet has nothing to do with the lasing action. It just serves as a host lattice in which the active centers, namely neodymium ions, can be placed. Let us try to understand working of Nd:YAG laser using energy level diagram of neodymium ions. It is a 4-level laser system. So the population inversion is achieved between E3 and E2. So ground level is not involved here. So lasing action will occur between the two energy levels E2 and E3. As a first step, the light energy coming from krypton lamp is utilized in exciting the neodymium ions to the higher energy levels. So this is the 4th level actually, E4, E5, E6. In a 4-level laser system, this group of energy levels will serve the purpose of 4th level. All these energy levels are normal states, normal levels, none of them is a metastable state. So the neodymium ions coming here will not rest here for long time. Immediately they will fall Once their lifetime in these levels get over, which is of the order of 10 raised to minus 8 seconds, they will immediately fall to the lower energy levels. So some of them will come to E3, some of them will directly come to E2, or some of them will directly come to E1 also. The neodymium ions coming to E2 will immediately fall to E1. But here the neodymium ions which are falling to E3 due to spontaneous emission will rest here for long time, because this level is a metastable state. And as the neodymium ions are residing here for longer time, the number of neodymium ions in energy E3 will become greater than number of neodymium ions in energy level E2. So the population inversion can be achieved between E3 and E2. And once the population inversion is achieved, we can initiate the lasing action, or the one of the photon coming from krypton lamp having the energy E3 minus E2 can be utilized for initiating the lasing action, and we will get a laser beam of wavelength 1.06 micrometers or 10,600 angstroms. So the laser beam given by Nd:YAG laser has got the wavelength 10,600 angstroms, which doesn't lie in the visible region. It will be in infrared region. Because it is a 4-level laser system, the population inversion can be easily maintained, and therefore it can be operated in continuous wave mode. Efficiency of better than 1% can be achieved with the help of Nd:YAG laser. These Nd:YAG lasers can be used in industrial applications like resistor trimming, welding, hole drilling, or some medical applications also for doing the surgery. So this is about Nd:YAG laser. Second one is helium neon laser. It is a gas laser. Helium and neon both are gases, so it is a gas laser. Now this diagram shows us the construction of helium neon laser. It consists of one gas discharge tube. Gas discharge means what? Passage of current through the gas. And for passing current through the mixture of the gas, we are using here one cathode and one anode. Whatever electrons emitted by cathode have only one path to go to the anode, and that is through gas. So this is how current is passed through the gas. This gas discharge tube is filled with a mixture of helium and neon. As the electrons pass through the gas, they may collide with these gaseous atoms and will transfer their energy to the gas atoms, and as a result of this, gas atoms can be excited to the higher energy levels. So the type of pumping used here is electrical pumping. So gas lasers usually use this type of electrical pumping. When we pass current through the gas, the electrons flowing can transfer their energy to the gas atoms, and as a result of this, gaseous atoms are excited to the higher level. Now this gas discharge tube is filled with a mixture of helium and neon. Neon atoms are the active centers here. Lasing action will occur for neon atoms. So if neon atoms are active centers, lasing action occurs for neon atoms. What helium is doing here? What is the role of helium atoms in helium neon laser? We will try to answer this question in the next slide, but at the moment just remember, neon atoms are the active centers and helium atoms just play a supporting role. Secondly, the proportion of helium and neon is around 10:1. So you can see number of helium atoms will be very large as compared to the number of neon atoms. Again here, if neon atoms are the active centers, why the number of helium atoms is very large? Again, answer to this question we will discuss in the coming slides. So just remember here. Now let us talk more about construction here. So a mixture of helium and neon is kept in a gas discharge tube. This gas discharge tube is around 50 centimeter in length and 1 centimeter in diameter. The tube is filled with a mixture of helium and neon. The proportion of helium to neon is 10:1. The resonant cavity is formed with the help of two mirrors. One mirror is fully reflecting and the other one is partially reflecting. The distance between these two mirrors is usually adjusted to be integral multiple of lambda by 2, where lambda will be the wavelength of laser beam. Now laser beam will come out of this partially reflecting mirror. What is the role of resonant cavity? Role of resonant cavity is to get the laser beam in one direction and to enhance the light amplification. At the ends of this gas discharge tube, we have two windows which are inclined at a particular angle, which is called as Brewster's angle. This arrangement serves the purpose of getting polarized beam of light. So this is the construction of helium neon laser. Now in helium neon laser, we have seen neon atoms are the active centers. So what is the role of helium here? What is the purpose of helium atoms in helium neon laser? Now to understand that, we can look at this diagram. You can see the helium atoms and neon atoms both are in ground state. When the energy is supplied to helium atoms, they are excited to E2 and E3, and E3 and E6, E2 and E4 lie at the same level. Energy level E2 of helium atom lie at the same level as energy level E4 of neon atom at around 19.81 electron volts above the ground state, and energy level E3 of helium and E6 of neon atoms match, and they lie at around 20.61 electron volts above the ground state. Now when the helium atoms are supplied with energy, they go to energy level E2 and E3. Now because E3 and E6, E2 and E4 lie at the same level, these helium atoms can transfer their energy to the neon atoms in the ground state. As a result, neon atoms are excited to this E4 and E6, and as the helium atoms are giving their energy, they will fall down and come back to the ground state. So what helium atoms are doing here? They are helping the neon atoms to get excited to the higher energy levels. So why are we not exciting the neon atoms directly? Because neon atoms are comparatively heavier and could not be pumped effectively. Helium atoms are lighter and therefore they are readily excitable than neon atoms. And once the helium atoms are excited to the energy level E2 and E3, they can transfer their energy to neon atoms through collision in the ground level, and as a result, neon atoms can be excited to energy level E4 and E6. These E4 and E6 are the metastable states for neon atoms, and therefore the population inversion can be achieved between E6, E5, E6, E3, E4 and E3, and we can get the lasing action. So role of helium atoms is just here to excite the neon atoms and cause the population inversion. Helium atoms do not take part in lasing action. They just help the neon atoms to get excited to the higher levels and cause the population inversion. This was the second question raised. Why the proportion of He is to Ne is 10:1? We have seen neon atoms are the active centers, but helium atoms are very large in number as compared to neon atoms. So let us see why. Helium atoms will absorb the energy and will go to the energy levels E2 and E3. So here helium atoms absorb the energy, come to E2 and E3. But many of the helium atoms, you will see now, they will fall down due to spontaneous emission, and only few helium atoms will be able to transfer their energy to the neon atoms. So very few neon atoms will be excited to the higher energy level. Again, let us have a look. Helium atoms absorb the energy, go to the excited states. Most of the helium atoms fall down due to spontaneous emission. Only few helium atoms will be able to transfer their energy to the neon atoms, and very few neon atoms will go to the excited state. So what we have seen here is many of the helium atoms which have gone to the excited energy levels E2 and E3 fall down due to spontaneous emission and won't be able to transfer their energy to the neon atoms. Only few of them can transfer their energy to the neon atoms. So what we can do to increase the probability of neon atoms getting excited to the excited energy level, that can be increased by increasing the number of helium atoms. And that is the reason why the ratio of helium atoms to neon atoms is maintained as 10:1. So more the number of helium atoms, more will be the helium atoms available to excite the neon atoms to the excited states. Let us try to understand the working of helium neon laser based on the energy level diagram. These are the energy levels of helium atoms and these are the energy levels of neon atoms. We have seen that energy level E2 of helium atoms coincide with the energy level E4 of neon atoms, and E3 of helium atoms coincide with energy level E6 of neon atoms. The first step in the laser system will be the absorption. So the electrons which are moving through the gas, mixture of the gas, will collide with the helium atoms and will transfer their energy to the helium atoms. As a result of this, helium atoms will go up, some of them will go to E2, some of them will go to E3. The helium atoms going to E2 and E3 will immediately fall down due to spontaneous emission of radiation, but some of them will be able to transfer their energy to neon atoms in the ground state, and as a result of this, neon atoms are excited to E4 and E6. Now this E4 and E6 energy levels of neon atom are the metastable states. So the neon atoms will stay in these states for long time, and population inversion can be achieved between E6 and E5. Population inversion can be achieved between E6 and E3, and population inversion may be achieved between E4 and E3 as well. The lasing action can be initiated and we can get a laser beam of wavelength 3.39 micrometers due to the transition occurring between E6 and E5. We can get a laser beam of wavelength 6328 angstroms due to the transition occurring between E6 and E3, and we can get another laser beam of wavelength 1.15 micrometers or 11,500 angstroms due to the transition between E4 and E3. When the atoms come to E3, they will fall down to E2 due to spontaneous emission of radiation. So the population inversion will be continuously maintained between E3 and E6 or E5 and E6, because atoms will not stay in E5 or E3 for long time. They will immediately fall down due to spontaneous emission. And when the atoms come to E2, they will collide with the walls of the gas discharge tube and will lose their energy and will fall down to the ground state. So this is how helium neon laser will work. We will be getting the laser beam of 3 wavelengths here, 3.39 micrometers, 6328 angstroms and 1.15 micrometers. So this is what we have seen. E6 to E5 transition generates a laser beam of wavelength 3.39 micrometers or 33,900 angstroms. E6 to E3 transition generates a laser beam of wavelength 6328 angstroms. So this will be red in color. This will be in infrared region, 3.39 micrometer will be in infrared region, but 6328 angstroms will be red in color. So we will be able to see red colored beam. E4 to E3 transition will result in a laser beam of wavelength 11,500 angstroms. So again this will be in infrared region, will not be visible. Merits and demerits of helium neon laser. It is a 4-level laser system, so it can be operated in a continuous wave mode because ground level is not involved in the lasing action. It can be used as a monochromatic source of light because 6328 angstroms red in color, this wavelength lies in the visible range, so it can be used in the optical experiments, interferometer, laser printing, barcode reading. Also this helium neon laser is useful. It can be used as a reference beam in surveying for alignment of the objects, etc., because it is visible, so it can be used in these applications. It is highly stable. Helium neon laser is highly stable, no separate cooling is required, but the disadvantage is output power is low. So this is about helium neon laser. The third laser system that we are going to see is semiconductor laser. Now semiconductor laser is nothing but a PN junction. So P type semiconductor and N type semiconductors are joined together. So a PN junction is formed over here. So this region near the PN junction will work as the active region here, where the lasing action will occur. All the sides of this PN junction, this side or this side, are perfectly polished so that photons cannot escape from these sides. Only one direction available for photons to escape is this one here. So only those photons will be allowed to come out which move in this direction. As a result of this, we can get a laser beam. This PN junction will work as a semiconductor laser when it is connected in forward bias mode. So laser output will be obtained only when this PN junction semiconductor laser is connected in forward bias mode. Forward bias means P side is connected to positive terminal of the battery and N side is connected to negative terminal of the battery. Now why it will give output only when it is forward bias, that can be understood by using the energy level diagram, energy band diagram for this PN junction. So let us see the energy band diagram for PN junction. So this is the energy band diagram for PN junction. This is P side and this is N side. Energy bands on N side, energy bands on P side. You can see this is a Fermi level. You can see the position of the Fermi level here. On P side, Fermi level is inside the valence band, and on N side the Fermi level is inside the conduction band. We will comment on this why is it so at the end. For the moment, just remember that Fermi level on P side is inside the valence band and on N side it is inside the conduction band. So this is valence band on P side full of holes, because holes are the majority carriers on P side. Electrons on P side, electrons in the conduction band on P side are minority carriers and therefore their number is very small. On N side, conduction band is full of electrons, but in valence band there are very few holes available. So holes on N side are minority carriers. Now what is the reason behind the radiation given out from this PN junction? The radiation is obtained when the electron in conduction band recombines with hole in the valence band. So when this electron makes a transition from conduction band to valence band, it will emit extra energy in the form of a radiation, and that energy of that radiation will be EC minus EV. So here also, if these electrons recombine with the holes in valence band, photon of energy EC minus EV will be given out. So the principle of working of semiconductor laser is what? Recombination. Now what is laser? Laser properties of laser light we have seen. The light travels in only a single direction. So this can be achieved by polishing the PN junction from all sides and allowing the photons to come out only in one direction. So that directionality is achieved. Second is monochromaticity. Now because the photons are obtained when the electrons from conduction band are falling to valence band, so energy of all the photons obtained will be EC minus EV, h nu, which is equal to EC minus EV, and therefore all photons will have same frequency and therefore same wavelength. Therefore monochromaticity problem is also solved. Now what is the next requirement for the laser beam? Intensity, high intensity. Now intensity will be very high if we get very large number of photons, and very large number of photons will be obtained when very large number of electrons will fall from conduction band to valence band. This is unbiased PN junction. In this case, here we have very few electrons, holes are large in number but electrons are very few. So very few electrons can recombine with holes, so very few photons can be obtained. Here we have large number of electrons on n side, but very few holes in the conduction band, so very few electrons can recombine with the holes again, so very few number of photons are obtained on this side as well. So how to increase the number of photons? So because we want to get high intensity, and therefore we need to increase the number of photons. So how that can be done? That can be done by getting a region in which we will be having large number of electrons in conduction band and large number of holes in valence band. And to get that region, what we do? Connect this PN junction in forward bias mode. When you connect this PN junction in forward bias mode, and when you adjust the forward bias voltage to be greater than barrier voltage, then the energy bands on the two sides will get aligned. Valence band on P side is aligned with the valence band on N side, and conduction band on N side is aligned with the conduction band on P side. So because now the bands are aligned, the electrons from conduction band on N side can easily cross the junction and can come on the P side conduction band. Similarly, holes in valence band on P side can also easily cross the junction and come on the N side valence band. So due to this, suddenly number of electrons in conduction band and number of holes in valence band will increase near the junction. So near the junction we have large number of electrons in conduction band and large number of holes in valence band. So large number of electrons now can recombine with holes in the valence band, and as a result large number of photons having the energy h nu equal to E2 minus E1 or EC minus EV in this case will be obtained. So recombination will occur at large scale. So large number of photons will be obtained, so intensity will be very large. Now let us come back to this question, why Fermi level was inside the valence band on P side and inside the conduction band on N side. Now this indicates that Fermi level inside the valence band on P side indicates the doping concentration on P side is very high. So very large number of holes are available in the valence band, and Fermi level inside the conduction band indicates very large number of electrons, doping concentration on N side, and therefore very large number of electrons in the conduction band on N side. Large number of electrons in conduction band means large number of electrons will cross the junction and will arrive in the junction area. Similarly, large number of holes in valence band means very large number of holes will cross the junction and will arrive in the N side near the junction. So large number of electrons in conduction band, large number of holes in valence band. So large number of photons will be given out due to recombination that is occurring at large scale. So for recombination to occur at large scale, we need large number of electrons in conduction band and large number of holes in valence band. And for this purpose, we are doping P side and N side heavily. And heavy doping indicates Fermi level inside the valence band on P side and inside the conduction band on N side. So this is all about semiconductor laser working. These are the semiconductor materials which can be used for construction of semiconductor laser: indium gallium nitride or gallium nitride. So with this material we can get the wavelengths of 3800 angstroms or 4050 angstroms, 4500 or 4700 angstroms. All of them will be either blue or violet in color, and this laser can be used for the purpose of data storage. Then aluminium gallium, indium phosphide or gallium arsenide, they will give the wavelengths 6350 angstroms or 6500 angstroms or 6700 angstroms. So will be red in color. So can be used for laser pointers, DVD players, barcode readers. Then aluminium gallium arsenide or gallium arsenide, can be operated in infrared region 7200 angstroms to 8500 angstroms. So can be used in CD players, laser printers, for pumping, supplying the optical energy in case of solid state lasers. These are indium gallium arsenide, can be operated in 9000 to 11000 angstroms, infrared region again. This indium gallium arsenide phosphide or indium phosphide, again it can be operated in infrared region and can be used in optical fiber communication, in sensing application, in spectroscopy. This is another material which can be used. Aluminium gallium arsenide antimonide can be used in defense applications, sensing applications, spectroscopy applications. This also operates in infrared region. Now surprisingly, there is no silicon and germanium, the widely used semiconductors. All these semiconductors which are used for construction of semiconductor laser all are called as direct gap semiconductors. Silicon and germanium materials are the indirect gap semiconductor materials, and for them the energy gap is such that the wavelength, the radiation given out carries the wavelength which doesn't lie in the visible region, and it is often experienced as in the form of heat. So silicon, germanium are not so useful in building the semiconductor laser, in constructing the semiconductor laser, but the semiconductor material used for constructing semiconductor laser is obtained by mixing a group 3 element with group 5 element in different proportion. Different proportion will result in different wavelength. So we are at the end of session 2. In this session 2 we covered Nd:Arc laser, helium neon laser and semiconductor laser. Our next session will be on Einstein relations and the applications of laser. One of the important applications that we will be learning is holography. So hope you enjoyed this session. If you like my videos, then please subscribe to my channel so that you will get timely intimation of new videos. Thank you. If you have any queries, you can WhatsApp me, or you can communicate with me through Google Classroom. So thank you once again.